Hello, and thanks for joining me today. I appreciate your time and your interest in discovering how to market your mobile home community or business online in this year. And so today we're going to be talking about how to maximize your lead flow to get the most for your business that you can while marketing online. And so stick with us. We're going to cover a lot of material today, and we're going to share a lot of great tips with you to help you sell more. So I'm going to start in and just say, here's what we're really looking to cover. First, we're going to talk about our goals and what really takes to hit the goals that you're targeting. We're going to cover how to calculate that and figure that out. We're going to talk about the three fundamentals of marketing success, how to optimize your website for conversion for 2024 and beyond. We're going to cover the big picture of how all the different marketing channels that you should be tapping into, how they all work together, and how to maximize your lead flow. We'll discuss the latest trends that you need to be aware of in marketing. And we're also going to talk about how to build a custom action plan for where you're at right now, and so you can get where you want to go. Now, I really need your attention. So what I'm going to ask is that you turn off your cell phones, and I'm going to do the same thing with mine right here. I'm going to turn it off. And so we're going to turn these off. We're going to turn off Facebook. We're not going to be checking all of our other things that we have going on. And we're probably going to spend, about an hour, the next 60 minutes or so, covering how to get better results. So if you're a serious business owner and you want to get better results, this next hour or so here could really change your life. So if you'll stay till the end, I'm going to reveal some tools that will give you some guidance on how to execute this and how to do this. So I hope that you'll hang around and stick with us as we cover this material. So who am I and why should you listen to me? I'm the author of The Complete Guide to Internet Marketing for Manufactured Housing and How to Triple Your Sales by Getting Your Internet Marketing Right. I'm an associate member at many of the different associations around the country. I've spoken at industry events across the U.S. I've published marketing articles for the industry. I'm widely accepted as the premier expert in internet marketing for MH communities. And I have worked with communities all over the country to help them generate more leads and sell more homes. So we've literally worked with hundreds of communities, helping sell thousands of homes over the years. And, so I'm going to start by asking you a question. What's the hardest part about marketing your MH community or business online? Have you ever really given that any thought? I'm going to give you a second there to think about that question. I would say that what makes it hard is that there are so many options and it's not always clear of where you should spend your budget. And that makes things confusing. So what we've done is we've taken a lot of the different sources online, the things that we typically consider the key components, and really put that into a plan to help you know how to maximize the number of leads that you can get for your business. This requires an investment in marketing. I would be lying to tell you otherwise. It does require an investment in marketing. And a lot of times people are scared about that because they've done it in the past and they don't have much to show for it, probably because they weren't doing the marketing right. So that's what we're going to address is more often than not, you fail because you don't have a clear plan. So you end up overspending or you underspend and underperform, overspend and underperform, some combination of these variables. And so you're left feeling like this doesn't really work. It's not for me. It doesn't work in MH. I've been in the MH space since 2007. I started doing this type of marketing back when we were all still placing classified ads in the newspaper. And I can tell you it does work. So let's talk about the opportunity. The opportunity exists when you can put a clear plan together that has goals, targets, KPIs, all of the things that are required for real marketing plans. When you have those in place, that's when you can see success. It will help you generate enough leads to hit your targets and keep you moving forward. You can have a great return on your investment. And so what we're going to talk about is ultimately, how do you bring all this together to form success? How do you maximize your lead flow so that you can hit your sales goals for this year? So first off, you have to start by setting clear goals. That's step number one. So what are your goals for this year? Well, Brian Tracy says success is goals, all else is commentary. And there's a lot of times we'll do this, right? Where we talk about something and we say, I'm going to do this, or I'm thinking about this, or I'll probably, we do all these things where we don't really commit. And what I'm asking you is, what are your goals? What are you really trying to get to? Where are you sailing to? And how are you navigating that? Are you using the wind that you can collect to push you towards that goal? There was a Harvard study done, and they looked at graduates, and they said 84% of those graduates had no specific goals. 13% had goals, but they weren't written down. And only 3% had clear written goals and plans to accomplish them. So when they looked at the results, the 13% who had goals were earning on average twice as much as the 84% that had no goals. And the 3% who had clear written goals were earning on average 10 times as much as the other 97% put together. So for us, as we're growing businesses and we're attracting people, having clear goals tells us if we're on the right track or not, and ultimately puts the pieces in place to help us be successful. So let's talk a little bit about a goal setting framework. So the first thing is you need to have written goals and plans. And this is the way I would suggest it. Start with a 1-year goal. A lot of people talk about 10-year goals and 5-year goals and these things that are out there. You have to be able to get these other smaller steps in place first. So a 1-year goal, quarterly goals, monthly goals. Internally, I will tell you at our team, we have monthly goals, we have quarterly goals, we have yearly goals, we have a 1-year goal, and we actually now have implemented a 5-year goal. But it starts with these small steps. Start with those monthly goals or quarterly goals and build from there. You must have a stopping point at the beginning of each new year and the end of each quarter to stop and reflect. How did you do based on what your goal was and what you were trying to do? And from where you get what you actually did, how do you move forward? So what are your goals for 2024? Do you have a revenue target? Have you looked at what would it take to hit that number monthly? If you take your yearly goal and break that into months, how many phone calls is that going to take? What's the average transaction value worth at your community? These are the kind of things you have to start thinking about in order to put the proper goal together. So as an example, let's say you had a revenue target of $4 million. You wanted to sell $4 million this year. That works out to about $330,000 a month. If that's a home, if the home's worth, say, $80,000 and you've got like a $500 a month site rent, it's about $86,000. So you would need 4 homes per month. So you're going to need, depending on your conversion rate, probably about 97 leads a month to have a chance at hitting that number. So what's your average conversion rate? When you look at the calls that come in, the leads that come into your community, what is your conversion rate to take it from a lead to a sold home? Divide your call target by your conversion rate, and then you'll start to get an idea of how many leads you will need to hit your goal. So let's say, for example, that you've got a 4% conversion rate. 4% of your leads end up purchasing. So if you have 97 leads at 4% conversion, you're going to be at about that 4 sale mark. I look at it with this little breakdown like this. We'll give you a link to this later, where you can plug these numbers in and it'll do the calculations for you. And you can, if you have data already, you can take and plug your real data in and it'll give you an idea. It'll tell you about what a lead would cost. It'll help you calculate a budget of what you should be spending. I think this is one of the areas we miss in MH is we under budget. We think because we're selling affordable housing that everybody wants it and there's no reason to spend money. And what I've seen is it's become the opposite of that. We want to go above and beyond to create a good experience for the potential customer so they want to buy at your community. So we're going to have to reach them a lot of different ways, and it's going to take a little bit of spend. And when you look at the profit that you're facing with getting that resident into that home, that's what makes it worthwhile. So what are your goals for 2024? How many leads do you feel like you will need in order to reach your goal? Really spend some time and calculate this, because I think what happens a lot of times is we don't do any calculation at all. And so what happens is we get to the end of the year and we're like, we didn't sell as much as we wanted to, but we don't really know why. And most likely the reason why is we didn't drive enough traffic. So when we talk about fundamentals of marketing, really this is what it is. We have to get these pieces to match up. We need the market. We need to know who we're talking to. We need media. How are we reaching them? What channel or channels are we using? And what's the message that we're telling them? That's really what makes up the fundamentals of marketing and how we can engage people. So let's talk about that message for a moment. Who's your ideal customer? You may not have thought about this question really before because you're thinking, well, people that want affordable housing or people that own MH or what you may have some definition, but I encourage you to really spend some time. And so I'm going to kind of share with you our process and how we look at this. And maybe you can take some things from this that you can take and use to break down. So when you're building out a customer profile or an avatar, here's an example of things you might look for when building out a profile for an MH buyer. They may currently be a renter, 28 plus years old. Some of these may be different for you. So these are just some examples. Typically, we find that it's the female that reaches out. Most of the time, they're married with kids or have kids live in the home. Sometimes they're the head of household and a household income, 45,000-ish. They're usually family oriented. More often than not, they're reliable people. They get easily frustrated though. They want to please people and they expect you to do the same for them. They're not really handy, so they're not looking for fixer-uppers typically. More often than not, they live in a current rental situation and they've taken an interest in your community. Some pains and frustrations. These are things we look at. They're tired of sharing walls. That's a comment we hear a lot from the apartment people. Tired of sharing walls. They can't find a place that they can afford, but they're ready to move. They're too busy to sort through tons and tons of options. And this is oftentimes the most important piece and what puts them over the edge, they're worried that their perfect home, the one that they fall in love with that you have, could also be someone else's favorite. And that's ultimately what gets them to take action. Fears and implications. They're afraid of being ripped off or overcharged, afraid of missing out, spending another year renting, never having something of their own, moving to save on rent. They feel like they're always looking for another place to live. They can't afford quality for a home. These are some of the things they fear. They may fear being stuck where they're at and feel like there's no way out. That's another fear they may have. When we talk about goals, a lot of times their goals can be things like this: finding a forever home, having this issue behind them once and for all, having a well-kept home in a community, a place to take care of their family, having that pride of ownership, living in a little bit nicer place, maybe driving a nicer car, spending more time at home with families, holidays, birthdays, respect and approval of their friends, peace of mind. These are the kind of things, goals and desires that they may be looking for. So if you can see, Joe Jones, that's our made up character here, through Joe Jones' eyes, then you can sell what he wants to buy. So again, we go back to this message market and media and we say, well, what's your message? Why should someone choose your community versus the competition? What are the benefits that you offer to your target customer that will mean something to them? What does your community offer that they could look at and be like, wow, I want that. That's what I'm looking for. Those are the kind of things you need to be asking yourself that will help you craft a great message. So here's some examples of things that oftentimes work. Talking about having affordable 3-bedroom homes, convenient access to schools and shopping. These can be important for all age communities. For 55 plus, it might be amenities. That it's a safe and quiet neighborhood. That's important to pretty much everyone. And because you're an MH and it's not just a random home for sale, you can speak to some of these things a little more directly and really communicate the points well. So you can most likely make the case also for these things. Typically flexible financing, typically lower down payments. You may have on-site staff. You may have great amenities, an easy application process, convenient access to the highway, just some of these other things that you may be able to kind of stack up to make your community even more appealing. So what's your message? What about your community and that you own, or multiple communities? You may have to work through this process several times. What is your message that you can build around? Now let's talk about the media. So you want to make sure that when you're running a message that it can actually convert, and that your hub, which your website is your hub, that your website is ready to convert. So you have all of these sources that can drive leads to you. You want to make sure that when somebody gets to your website, that it is ready to convert them into traffic. Can you convert them into a phone call? Can you convert them into a lead form? This is what we're talking about. And you should be able to look at that and really see that optimization can have an impact. So as your website gets more and more optimized, you should spend less and less driving traffic there because it's going to perform better. So, you want to make sure that your logo is prominent, that it's easy to find a phone number, that your website's mobile responsive, that it's very clear who you are and what community they're looking at, that your name, address, and phone number match all the way across the internet, things like that. So when we talk about website for conversion, does it speak to your target? Does it address their fears and frustrations? Does it have real photos of your team and of your community throughout the website? Do you have a video element, maybe where you can welcome site visitors with a video? Does it have a video of your community and if there's any services or amenities or anything like that? Does it have a video that explains why they should talk to you versus your competitors? Does it show your online reviews? Is it easy for them to take action and get in touch with you? Easy to find the phone number? Do you have web forms? Do you have authority symbols, which would be like symbols like associations and things you can join? So when you look at your website, pull it up, take a peek. Is it built to convert? Are there things on there that you could tweak and start to test to see, does it help your website perform better? Now, the biggest marketing issue facing your company could look something like this, that 50 to 60% of the inbound traffic that comes in will leave and won't convert. And 90% of web forms that get filled out fail to convert. And so we really have to dig in and say, is if we're driving all this traffic and we know that that's what's important, why does it do so poorly? And here's why. Leads that are not followed up within 15 minutes go cold. The average customer must be followed up with 5 to 7 times before booking. And today's consumer prefers to interact via text message versus a phone call or an email. Now, I will tell you, in my opinion, and I base this on dealing with hundreds of thousands. Actually, last year we crossed over 1 million MH leads. I can tell you, in looking at thousands and thousands of phone calls and what results from those phone calls, I think that 15-minute number of going cold, I think it is even smaller now. I think that it is more like 5 to 6 minutes. I just don't have documented, proven out data. I'm just talking about what I look at when I see what's going on. We haven't really done an official study yet, is what I mean. But it looks like that time is getting even faster. And I can tell you that our plan for communities that work with us is we want a response to go out to the prospect within 2 minutes of them filling out a form or reaching out. And we use automation to help with that. So it's not a person necessarily the very first time, but we're doing something to acknowledge that they contacted the community right away to buy some time so we can get a real person on the phone. And, the average number of follow-up times, yeah, I find this to be pretty accurate. It could even be as many as 10 or 12 times. I think it's around that 7 or 8, I think, is where it's actually headed. It's requiring more follow-up than ever. But the good news is there's tools to help you with that. So you want to learn to leverage marketing automation to follow up with those forms within that first 2 minutes with a phone call, email, text message, some combination, maybe all three, and then automate the follow-up process so that every prospect gets touched 5 or more times in a way that you can engage with them via text message, because that is typically going to be the way they want to do it. So it's really simple. If you've got 100 leads with a 30% no follow-up, so you say you get 30 tours booked out of it, and that leads to selling one home. Okay, if the home was worth 80 and site rent 6,000, okay, 86,000. Whereas if you could bump that conversion rate up to 70%, you might push that to 10 homes because it's multiplied. It's not going to be linear, and all of a sudden we're talking about 860,000. So you want to make every lead you generate more valuable, and the way you do that is by getting your messaging right, getting your automation right, your media, all of these pieces right. That's how you make the leads more profitable. And it's time to really start talking about how do you actually implement this in your business. And so you want to start with your website. That's really the first piece of this, and everything is going to kind of build off of that. So I want you to take a look at your website and look for 3 conversion elements that you can implement on your website. Maybe it's putting your logo big in the top left corner. Maybe it's putting your phone number big in the top right corner. Maybe it's making sure you have a contact form very visible and easy to access right on the home page. Maybe it's making sure that it's mobile friendly. Look for 3 conversion elements that you could put on your website, a really clear call to action, something like that you could implement right now. And so as we've talked about the website, what I would tell you to ask yourself is, what have you learned? What did you notice about what we were saying? And what really stuck out to you is, hey, this is something that I can do. Next is you want to know and track your KPIs. So typically, as it relates to marketing, the KPIs that I would tell you to focus on would be how many leads do you have coming in, how much you're spending total, what's your average cost per lead, and where do your leads come from? Those are examples of some of the things you want to track. So far, we've talked about setting a clear goal and target. We've talked about marketing and messaging and media. We've talked about website optimization and conversion, and we've talked about KPI tracking. So now let's talk about some of the trends that we're seeing. So first, we're seeing a bigger push for Google local ads. And these are the ads that you see when you do a search that pop up right at the top. We're seeing more of that happening in MH and people using Google more so than they have in the past to find communities. We've also seen a shift away from phone conversation to message conversation inside those ads. And I think that's an important distinction. Used to, everybody was like, get on the phone, get them on the phone. And that is still king. Having a phone conversation with somebody is incredibly powerful, but the consumer is wanting to start with a message first. And so you really want to have an all-in perspective with your marketing. And that means having your website optimized, having pay-per-click ads, using social, using all the tools that you have available. That's what we mean. So now let's talk about building a plan. So at the beginning, we talked about this graphic just briefly, and that we've got kind of these key areas here. There's 8 of them that kind of all feed into the website. And these are the things you're using to create traffic and drive traffic to your website so they can see who you are and see what you're about. And so you're going to be picking through these areas, and we'll talk about some of these a little bit more, but you're going to be working through these and learning what are some things I can take and implement. So I wanted to take just a moment and talk about some of our client experience and what we typically do. And our focus is on helping our clients drive more leads. And we do all of these things that we're talking about for them. And so oftentimes clients come to us and they say, hey, I want to sell X number of homes this next year. And then we can help them put a plan together with a budget to arrive at that and then evaluate that regularly. So that means looking at it monthly. And then on our side, we're looking at ad campaigns daily to make adjustments as we see adjustments that need to be made. So in our case, like last month, we had one client, we generated over 3,000 leads for them just last month. Now they had a lot of homes to sell, so they needed a lot of leads. But there are leads there to be had. And when you know how to generate them properly, you can generate big numbers. With your website, you want to have a website that is built to convert. That's number one. Everybody wants a pretty website, and I think pretty is good, but functional and one that produces is really the best. You want to be proactive with your SEO, meaning that you're using things and terms on your site that the consumer would search for. So the big one that I see is all the operators want to say manufactured housing, manufactured homes. But the consumer still searches mobile homes, mobile home park, trailer park. These are the words they use. And so I get that you may not want that prominent on your website, but you want to make sure that you have pages on your website that can bring that traffic in. You want to make sure that your community is showing properly on Google Maps, that you've got a focus on generating reviews and building your reputation, that you're being strategic with your pay-per-click campaigns, that you have a social media presence, and that you're leveraging email marketing, because honestly, that can be a great way to keep your community full once it is full. And then you want to make sure that you have tracking pieces in place. You want to rank in the top 3 on Google for your most important keywords, which I'm sure you know what your most important keywords are, correct? You want to make sure that you rank for those. And, then that way you can see, okay, for those keywords, we generated X number of leads. This is the money we spent on search optimization. So that gives us a cost per lead for that channel. We have a checklist that we have produced for the manufactured housing industry. You can download it at leadcrossing.com/checklist-download. You can download it there. So that's leadcrossing.com/checklist-download. And this has most everything you need to know to really build a solid foundation, and we'll just walk you through it. So as you're building your custom plan, I want you to think about, what are your 3 internet marketing initiatives that you need to implement to hit your goal? We've covered a lot of things so far. So maybe it's optimizing your website. Maybe it's getting better on social. Maybe it's capturing reviews and sharing those. Maybe it's getting pay-per-click going. Take some time to think about, what are 3 initiatives that you feel like, hey, if I did these 3 things, this would get me really moving. Maybe it's the automation. That's a really big one that a lot of people skip over. Maybe it's that piece of it. Maybe it's just saying, hey, I'm going to make sure that all of my managers, they're understanding that when a call comes in, we have to answer it, or we have to call back within a certain amount of time. However you choose to implement it is fine. But I would encourage you to look at automation as a way to implement that. So again, think about, what have you learned from that? What have you realized or noticed about your own communities, and maybe some things that you need to improve? So let's talk a little bit about what we've covered. We've talked about figuring out how many leads you need in order to hit your target. We've talked about the 3 fundamentals of marketing success. We've talked about how to optimize your website, how to look at the big picture of your marketing channels to tap into some of the latest trends, and how to go about building a custom plan to figure out where you're at right now, but ultimately to help you get where you want to go. So we have a lot of tools that we share to help with this, calculators that you can use in Google Sheet Doc that will help you. You can enter your numbers in and test out some different percentages and things like that, dollar figures, and help you really dial in how many leads you actually need and give you a realistic picture of what you may need to spend. We have charts that document all of these different pieces. We have the checklist and a lot of other things that we have too, that we have here. So if you're interested in any of that, or maybe you want to talk and just learn a little bit more about how all this works together, the easiest way to do that is to give us a call at 817-662-2048. That's 817-662-2048. Or you can visit Lead Crossing, that's LEAD crossing.com. And you can contact us through the website, read up a little bit more about us there. Again, by phone, it's 817-662-2048. You can also text us at that number, by the way, or visit our website, leadcrossing.com. Either way, we can get in touch with you, or you can get in touch with us. We'll be happy to discuss with you. We can walk through what we call the Lead Flow Accelerator, and that's really where we spend some time one-on-one talking about your business specifically and help you, kind of formulate this plan and help you really see what are the areas that are lacking for you, where you could get some good wins to help you generate more leads, potentially with things that you already have in place, just reorganizing. So again, my name is Brandon Meek, and I am the founder of Lead Crossing. I've been in the MH industry since 2007. I appreciate you joining me on this webinar or podcast, however you're consuming it. I appreciate you joining me for this, and I hope that you found some information that's helpful. I would love to hear from you. To help you, of course, but I would also love to hear from you. If you're making changes, what are you doing in your marketing and what's working for you? I would love to hear from you and learn more about your business and your communities. So even if you just want to reach out for that, I would love to connect with you. So again, you can call or text at 817-662-2048 or visit our website, leadcrossing.com. Thanks.